One night in Boston during June of 1768, British customs officials and soldiers were attempting to seize one of John Hancock's ships, the Liberty, while it was in port. Now, you can say that the Sons of Liberty were out on patrol, or you can say that a roving mob was out rioting in the streets. Take your pick. They amount to about the same thing. They attacked the British customs officials, and they attacked the soldiers that were there, and British officials were chased away, and the customs commissioner was chased out of town. In retaliation for this, the British Army sent 2 more regiments of soldiers into Boston, which the citizens of Boston refused to quarter. They also arrested John Hancock, and they confiscated the Liberty. Now, this was John Hancock's ship. He owned the ship, and the British confiscated it, and they took it out. They refitted it as an armed British Navy schooner. So now John Hancock's ship, the Liberty, was a Navy ship, was a British Navy ship. In 1769, about a year later, the Liberty showed up in Narragansett Bay as a British Navy ship patrolling for colonial merchant shipping or looking for smugglers. In July, it brought a colonial brig into Newport for further inspection. The captain of the Liberty kept the brig in port for several days, and the captain of the brig went to the Liberty to find out why his ship was being held in port so long. Aboard the Liberty, the brig's captain was treated with hostility, and he was actually shot at while he left. Okay, this angered the citizens in Newport, and at night, a crowd of armed men rowed boats out to the Liberty and swarmed over the gunwales and surprised the crew. The crew of the Liberty offered no response or no resistance. They tore the mob. What they did, they tore down the mast so the ship couldn't be sailed, and they cut the mooring cables and set it adrift. The colonists took the crew off the ship, and they loaded up all the small boats, and they took all the boats into Newport. And what the mob did then was they paraded these ships, the ship's boats, through the streets of Newport, and they took them to the town's common and cut them on fire. The Liberty, in the meantime, drifted across to a place called Goat Island and ran aground. And another group of colonial citizens rowed their boats out to the Liberty and burned it down to the waterline. So they basically destroyed the ship. Without hurting anybody, the crew was safe on shore. Needless to say that the tensions between the British and the colonists were becoming even more and more tense.
Now, the tensions were boiling throughout all of the colonies, more so in the northern colonies and especially in Boston. Things were really hot in Boston, because Boston, that was the home of John Hancock, Samuel Adams, and Paul Revere. And these men not only refused to allow things to cool down, but their activities purposely put fuel onto the fire. Boston was a tinderbox waiting for a spark to explode it. And that spark came on the night of March 5th, 1770, when a rowdy, jeering, loud, uncontrolled mob met up with a small group of British soldiers on the streets of Boston. There was a tense standoff. The mob shouted insults, they threw snowballs, and the scene got really nasty, and more citizens came to join the mob, and then one of the soldiers actually hit one of the rioters, and the mob started throwing rocks, and it was a real tense, scary situation. And there was one British soldier that was he was scared, and he was young, and he fired his musket. And then another shot fired, and before it was all over, 5 of the citizens, 5 of the mob members that were harassing the soldiers, 5 were dead, and a bunch more were wounded. And after that, Samuel Adams and Paul Revere made as much anti-British propaganda as they could out of this event. For over a year, Samuel Adams wrote countless newspaper articles about the massacre that occurred in Boston, and it became known as the Boston Massacre, thanks to Samuel Adams. Now this slide shows a print of an engraving made by Paul Revere. It depicts a very colonial view. It's not really an honest picture, but if you were trying to make a point against the British, this is the picture that you would make. First of all, it does not show any snow. Okay, the whole incident started when the colonists were throwing snowballs at the soldiers. But Paul Revere's picture here fails to show that there's any snow in the area at all. And also notice how well the British soldiers are lined up. I mean, look at them. They're all in a perfectly straight rank. They're all standing in the firing position, got the left leg forward, right leg back, and they're all firing in unison at the command of the officer standing behind them. It looks more like a planned, organized execution, or even a firing squad, more than it really was. But Paul Revere, he wasn't worried about letting a few of the actual facts ruin a great opportunity for anti-British propaganda.
Now, despite the best effort of Samuel Adams and Paul Revere, 1771 and 1772 were relatively quiet years. Tensions between the colonists and the British occupiers became normalized and they calmed down for a while. The American economy was good. There was a very poor agricultural harvest in Europe, and so American farmers got top prices for all of their corn and their wheat. Customs officials were making plenty of money and were able to relax some of the import duties that they were charging on the colonial shipping. John Adams acted as a defense lawyer for the British soldiers that fired their muskets in the Boston Massacre, and even John Hancock told the British governor that he was through agitating. Hey, I do realize that it will be very shocking for some historians to see the name of John Hancock on the Dove side of this slide, but I have footnoted from a very well-known, highly respected historian named Samuel Eliot Morrison that at least during this short period of time, 1771, 1772, that John Hancock was ready to end his agitation activities. Samuel Adams and Paul Revere, they were not ready to end their agitation, and they continued to produce anti-British propaganda. Now, a year or so later, after the Boston Massacre, there was more Maritime Accident in Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island. Remember a few slides ago when I showed you where Narragansett Bay was in Rhode Island? Yeah, in 1772, the British Navy was still patrolling for unregulated commerce, so they're still out there in Narragansett Bay looking for smugglers. The citizens of Rhode Island were getting more and more agitated. They were even more agitated than they were during the St. John's incident 8 years earlier in 1764, or 3 years earlier in the Liberty incident in 1769. This time, the British Navy ship involved was a schooner named the Gaspee. The Gaspee was in pursuit of a suspected smuggler, the Hannah. The Hannah was commanded by Captain Benjamin Lindsay, who had very high level of local knowledge of Narragansett Bay. The captain of the Gaspee was a stranger to these waters. The Gaspee was chasing the Hannah northward, where the bay narrows the further north you go. The Gaspee followed Hannah's maneuver tack for tack. Lindsay led the Gaspee near a hidden sandbar and performed another tack. When the Gaspee followed that tack, it ran aground and became deeply stuck in the sand. Lindsay then, he brought the Hannah back into Providence, into port at Providence, and the Gaspee was stuck on the sand awaiting the next high tide. During the night, a group of Providence citizens rowed their boats out to the Gaspee while it was stuck on the sandbar, and they captured it. They unloaded the crew into the boats, and they set the Gaspee on fire, and the Gaspee burned down to the waterline. The British were very, very determined to find the members of this mob that did this, but nobody in Providence knew anything about the incident, and everybody seemed to have a real good alibi. The British offered a huge reward for any information, but there were no witnesses. Nobody would come forward to claim the reward. Next is the Boston Tea Party. You just knew that I could not get through this talk without mentioning the Boston Tea Party. After all, they did throw the tea off of ships. In 1773, most of the Townshend Acts had been already repealed, but the tax on tea still remained. Many colonists began making tea out of raspberry leaves to avoid paying the importation tax on the tea. When the British Tea Company, the East Indian Tea Company, was having financial troubles, the British Parliament passed legislation to help them. This legislation, this law, eliminated the tea merchants, who were the middlemen in the tea industry. Eliminating the middlemen's share of the profits. But it also shifted the tax burden from the merchants to the consumer. When this law came into effect, the merchants' profits were eliminated and the taxes on the tea remained the same. So the net actual total price of the tea actually dropped. The tea actually cost less under this act than it had costed before. But nobody liked to pay the tax to the British government. And again, our recurring theme of tax avoidance occurring one more time. Now, when the ships loaded with the East Indian tea came to the colonies, they came to Charleston, South Carolina, Philadelphia, New York, Annapolis, Maryland, and Boston, Massachusetts. The ship that went to Charleston arrived and was unloaded without incident. The captains of the ships that were bound for Annapolis, New York, and Philadelphia, the captains were persuaded not to enter the ports, and they turned around and went back. But when the ship laden with East Indian tea arrived at Boston, Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty met with the governor of Massachusetts, and he asked him to forbid the ship from being unloaded. The governor refused to bar the ship from being unloaded. So later that night, the Sons of Liberty, they all dressed up like Indians, and they boarded the ship, and they dumped the tea into the harbor. This became known as the Boston Tea Party. In response to the Boston Tea Party, the British Parliament passed what they called in America the Intolerable Acts. These acts were mostly aimed at Massachusetts and New England because the British saw the rebellion was happening in those areas and did not want to antagonize the same attitude into the rest of the colonies. These acts include they closed the port of Boston to all commerce, and they were going to do that until the tea that was dumped in the harbor during the Boston Tea Party got paid for. Once that got paid for, they were going to open it back up. But in the meantime, it was closed, and nobody in the colony was willing to pay for it. So it was going to be closed. What they revoked the Massachusetts Charter of 1691. Basically, what that did was put the king in control and took all the rights of British citizenship away from all the citizens of Massachusetts and put them all under, let the royal governor, let the king basically appoint all the government officials, and they'd all be British, not colonists. The third thing was all British officers and the British officials that were accused of crimes and murder in the colonies would be tried in Great Britain. They would not be subjected to American colonial courts or colonial juries. They strengthened the quartering of troops law. When troops were quartered, the British government paid you a little bit for quartering the troops, and what this did was greatly reduce the amount that you were paid to take in troops into your house. And then the Quebec Act, basically what that did was it gave all the land between the Ohio River and the Mississippi River to the province of Quebec and took it away from New England. And this really scared a lot of the New England citizens because basically they came to America to get away from the Anglican and the Catholic churches, to get away for religious freedom. And they did not want their country that they had built as Protestants to come under the control of Catholics. So, and these new laws were going to be enforced by General Gage. A new General Gage, came to Boston, and he brought a whole lot of new troops with him. So they were there too. Boston became an occupied city, and the citizens started resenting the presence of so many troops in their town. Okay, that's pretty much where I want to tie it off from now, because the next major thing that happens is the Battle of Lexington and Concord, and that rolls right into the siege of Boston and Bunker Hill, and then you get into the formation of George Washington's Navy and the beginning of the Continental Navy, and that's all got to be. We'll try to tie it all into the next lesson and maybe the next two lessons, but this is a good stopping point for now, so we'll stop now. And this last slide, I don't want to call it the end. I want to call it the beginning. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to AmericanNavalHistory.com.